Well, welcome to the fun and mentals of real estate. We might have a little fun today, but we might be a little mental.
No, this is fun. This is fun stuff for me.
I don't know.
Remember, I never bought a house.
All right, okay. So I'm your host here today, Angela Dillmon with the Dillmon Group at Keller Williams Realty Chesterfield. And this is my wealth building partner,
Glen Calvin at Guild Mortgage. And what are we here to do?
We are here to help you build wealth. No, it's you.
Live your dream lifestyle.
And leave legacies that matter.
Okay, there you go. Josh Gulledge, our expert buyer's agent, is here again today joining us. We've been going through the whole buying process. We've been in the home. Last week we got in the home and we talked about what if we don't like it, what if we do like it, what's a realtor do for you when you're in it. That was a great episode last week. And so this week we're saying, hey, we do like it. We want to make the next steps of making an offer. And we decided that, maybe the first question was about price.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, what's it going to take? And our question of the day really is price the most important or the only factor that's going to help you win the house?
And I guess with my blinders on, what else is there besides price?
Oh my gosh, there's so many other factors.
Yeah.
So let's start with this. So Josh, I like it. How much is it going to take to get this house? This is my first question as a buyer. How do you answer that?
Yeah, so again, that is obviously the most common one when buyers are thinking about negotiating. That's what they come to. But really, I don't think price is the most important factor by any means. Most of the time, we back into price. So I talk about several things beforehand to determine what price and strategy we want to implement.
Okay.
And I think, 10 years ago, you would say we're going to come in 20 grand lower, 30 grand
absolutely,
lower.
Absolutely.
It's a different world right
market.
now.
It really is.
It's a different world.
It's not your parents' market.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to
say.
say.
I think as a real estate professional, I tell them all through the process, but especially during this part when I have this conversation, is I'm not pushing them anywhere. I just tell them, hey, here are your options. Because I'll hear some realtors, because again, sometimes we show and there's multiple realtors in the house.
Right.
Sometimes they are as loud as you could be. And I will hear them just flat out say, yeah, I think we should offer this. And the realtor basically told them what he would this is what I think you should offer. And so again, at that point, the clients, they kind of feel backed into a corner, all they can do is agree. So I like to just say, hey, here are all your options. Based on how aggressive you are in some of these is what you can get on price. And those are
okay, so hold on one second. So this counseling thing is really important because at the Dillmon Group, we really are here to counsel you and to help you give your options at all stages, whether we're listing the house or whether you're buying a house. And it's your decision. It's your money. It's whether you want to put your family there, right?
Yeah.
We're going to help protect you. We're going to help you brainstorm. We're going to help do all these things. But in the end, your decision, we give you the options.
Yeah, I always joke with them and just tell them, hey, I'm not the one living here. It's a great house. I'm not discrediting the house, but I'm at the end of the day, guys, it's your decision because you're living there, not me.
That's right.
What kind of a factor is the number that's there? Because there's a number.
Well, it depends on the terms. So let's talk about these terms. What are they?
Yeah, so the big ones are inspections, and then loan, and then there's two different contracts that we use, which we have talked about before, but to briefly touch it, a special sale contract versus a standard residential sale contract.
So help me with the inspections, because it's not a federal law that every house has to pass an inspection before it can be sold, right?
Yeah. So when we're going through their options on inspections, and it's pretty simple. There's three things that you can do. You can do your full set of inspections, and once you get the list of items that need repaired, you can either renegotiate or ask for a credit from the sellers. That's option A.
Is that part of the contract?
Yes.
It's part of the standard residential sale contract.
We're walking through the actual offer now.
Gotcha.
So obviously sellers.
Or walk away.
Yes, sellers.
Right? That's after my inspections, I can walk away. I can just say, I don't want the house. I can walk away.
You still have that right.
I can fix ABC. I'm marking today. I'm a happy camper. Yeah. I'll move forward.
So again, that's option A is ask the sellers for money to fix the items or walk away. Sellers obviously don't really love that one.
No, they don't.
They're fully expecting to get hit with some repairs, and buyers love that one. They have all the options in the world. Then you have the second option, which is, hey, Mr. Seller, I am not going to have a single inspector through this house. I'll see you at closing in 3 to 4 weeks.
Well, that sounds risky to me.
Yeah, wow,
Obviously,
the seller loves that.
Sellers love that one. Buyers, that one's a little more of a hesitant. And so then you have a third, but there's also a third option. There's, hey, Mr. Seller, I don't want to re-haggle price and ask you to fix a bunch of stuff, but I still want to have an inspector through to know what I'm buying. But I'm either going to buy it and move forward without asking for anything, or it's going to be more than I'm going to want to take on. I'm going to back out. And that really kind of meets in the middle. So that's the first one we talk about is just our 3 inspection items. And again, not to get too dug deep in the inspections. I know we'll talk about that on future podcasts, but that's your options for inspections. So depending on how aggressive you want to be on that front, makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference. The seller will actually take an offer that's lower price if it has no inspections or maybe limited. When I call limited inspections, I won't ask you to fix anything under $5,000. I won't ask you to fix anything at all, but I retain my right to walk away. As a seller, they may take a lower price over someone offering a bit more, but wants full inspections, full right to come after me and ask me for whatever. It's just an unknown for the seller. It makes them uncomfortable. They don't know how much they're going to hit up. This is feels more of a known and is more appealing to sellers. So it's a way to get a house for maybe a little bit less of price.
Yeah, so sellers, again, when we're talking about when buyers immediately are like, Josh, what do you think about price? Like, what can I offer? Well, it really depends on how aggressive you want to be. So sellers will pay or take a lower price for convenience and for a sure thing.
That's for a sure thing, absolutely.
I tell, as the agent side, when I'm talking to the other agent, I can't tell them enough times, like, this one makes it to closing. Like, this makes it to closing.
That's what a seller wants to know.
I make them feel really good about my buyers.
Right. So what's your second term?
So again, if you're really aggressive on the inspections, and then we go to loan. So, if you're putting 20% down, especially in one scenario we'll run later, but when it comes to appraisals. So if you have enough money that you have options, you can run a full appraisal.
Yeah, so that means your offer is contingent on a loan, which you've got in your loan scenario from Glen to begin with, and we'll talk about updating that.
Right, we talked too about having that loan fully approved.
Right.
So you want those buyers, and we've talked about this all through this process, to get with the lender, get them all your W-2s, your pay stubs, sign the disclosures, and get that loan fully underwritten and approved.
Yeah, not just a pre-approval. I had a phone conversation with my lender, but I'm fully processed with all my docs, employer verification, all my money needed. The underwriter's like, yeah, you're good to go. Just go find a house. And now we need an appraisal.
Most contracts have a contingent of getting my loan approval, right?
That's right.
You have so many days to get your loan approved. And if your loan is already approved, then you can waive that contingency.
Right.
Yeah, but even if you waive the contingency, you can still have an appraisal. So again, strictly on appraisals, just like inspections, you have 3 options.
3 options.
Full appraisal, and hey, Mr. Seller, if it appraises low, I'm asking you to drop the price.
Right.
Or I can walk away, right?
Or I can walk away.
Right.
Option 2 is, hey, Mr. Seller, even if I have to have an appraisal, I'm not contingent on it, and I'll just make up the difference, which we'll talk about. And then there's people that maybe they don't have unlimited cash because we're tight on our numbers. They can do one kind of like inspections in the middle, like, hey, I can bring X amount more than a low appraisal. So
yeah,
I give them a quick scenario. So like, let's just say you were buying a $400,000 home. And again, this is a scenario now, but obviously I tailor it to the price point that we're in. If you're buying a $400,000 house and you're putting 20% down, that's $80,000.
Right, borrowing $320.
So you're getting a loan of $320,000, right? That makes sense?
Right.
Well, just imagine, Glenn, you're the buyer, and it only appraises for $380,000. Right. So $20,000 low.
Oh my gosh! Do I have to bring in $20,000?
Glenn,
oh my gosh!
You still get a loan for $320,000.
Of course.
A house that's worth $380,000.
Do I have to bring in $20 more grand?
No, you don't.
Oh my gosh!
So what we can do, especially because you've got that 20% down, so now instead of putting 20% down, we can leave the loan amount the same. We're just going to lower the LTV. So the way the lender looks at it's important to know. The lender is going to look at, on a purchase, not a refinance, but on a purchase transaction, we look at the sale price or the appraised value, whichever is lower.
Right.
So if you're buying it for $400 and it appraises for $380, we're going to base that purchase price on $380. You're going to put down $320, so we're just going to base, now the loan amount isn't 80%, it's 84% or whatever that number is. Now you're going to pay mortgage insurance, but the good news is that mortgage insurance, even though my goal is to put down 20% and not have it, at a 15% loan to value and somebody with good credit, that number is tiny. And it goes away fast. It might be $25, $35 a month, and it's going to go away in a year and a half.
So this is where it's important, where you get the updated loan scenario from Glen to go, okay, well, what if conservatively this appraises $20,000 low, and now it looks like I'm putting 15% down instead of 20, I need a tiny little bit of PMI is what he's saying, private mortgage insurance.
Right.
It's very little. He'll give you the number. This will be known.
Then you can make your decision.
You can make your decision, right. And the other one Josh was really talking about was, hey, if it appraises, I'm buying it for $400. If it appraises for $390, I'll still buy the house because I'm only putting 5% down in this scenario.
You got to be careful.
Let's say, right? So I only really have 20 grand to put down, and now it's 10 grand lower, and you're like, wow, I do have the money. I don't want to put more than 10% down or 5% down, but I will if I have to.
Right.
And in that case, you can either go from a 10% down to, hey, it looks like a 5% down loan, and now pay a little bit more PMI. Or you could bring 10 grand to the table.
Right.
So you can tell the seller, I will still buy the house even if it only appraises for $390. We call that an appraisal gap. I'll meet the gap. Whereas other options are waive it entirely. I don't care because I'm putting so much money down. Glen's still going to give me a loan. There's no way it's going to appraise 20% lower. We're not that crazy off.
And the math,
right?
The math can get more complicated than, especially listening to it on a podcast. You're probably jumbling numbers. Really, it just comes down to whatever we're doing is just how much cash do you have and want to pull out and put down, and then I can kind of help you out with which option you have because. Option 3 might not even be an option depending on how much cash you're putting down.
If you have little cash, it's too risky.
I'm not going to put you in that scenario. Right. So,
but a lot of times you'll just get me on the phone and we'll look at the real numbers.
That's right.
It doesn't take that long, and then you know exactly.
If somebody's putting 20% down, very rarely somebody putting 20% down is not waiving that appraisal rider.
That's right. If you like the house enough, the risk will be known. It'll be we'll
the
punch
only time
the
that the appraisal really becomes like we're having this thorough of a conversation on the appraisals is if we're in a multiple offer situation and we're about to go way high because now the numbers can look a lot different.
Right.
As people call me all the time, it didn't appraise for the sales price, but the sale price was $30,000 over the list price.
So you're talking about escalations now. So this is an option.
Yeah. So
and hey, Josh, I know I've heard escalation clauses. I really don't understand how they work. Is it just infinite? Or do you put limits? How does that work? How do I know that the seller's not going to play games with me?
Yeah, so let's do the $400,000 house scenario. The house is asking $400,000, and it may go higher because there's multiple people interested.
Yeah, so again, we've had the inspection, the loan, and the contract conversation. So I know their terms now. So now it truly does come down to price. So I can know when they now ask me, Josh, what do you think of price? I know roughly how aggressive we can be based on our terms. Like if we went super conservative on all of our terms, now price is our biggest factor in our contract. The rest of our contract doesn't look that great.
Right.
As opposed
more risk to the seller.
Yeah, as opposed to we made the seller's life super easy on all these terms, and it does not get better than in 3 weeks. I've got the money, here you go. Now we can be pretty aggressive on price.
Right.
So even if we went more aggressive on the buy side, so the sellers are happy campers, it always does come down. I want to see my clients get the best possible price for the home.
Sure.
Even if we're in multiple offer negotiation. And that's where I like to throw in an escalation clause. So I give a simple analogy for an escalation clause and explain it. I use a toaster analogy. So imagine you were
love toast.
Imagine you were buying a toaster on eBay.
Okay.
The toaster's listed for $5,
right,
and you'd pay up to $20 for this toaster.
Yes.
It's a nice toaster. But you're not going to put your bid automatically at $20 for this toaster.
No, I don't want to pay $20.
You put your bid at $5, and you say, hey, I'm going to pay a dollar more than every other bid up to $20. So somebody bids $10 for the toaster, your bid automatically goes to $11.
$11, I got the toaster cheap.
And you got the toaster. But if somebody says, hey, I'm going to pay $25 for this toaster, you're like, well, I didn't want to pay more than $20. Does that make sense?
They can have it.
So in that scenario, it makes it simple. Now, the downside to this scenario is houses cost way more money than $10. They're not the same price as toasters.
Right.
So the numbers get a lot bigger, and we can't just do a dollar between items. So if somebody offers $400,000, our offer cannot be $400,001.
Right, it's not going to be enough to the seller to make a difference.
The difference in offers now, standard is $5,000 to $10,000. So if somebody offers $400,000, your offer really needs to be $405,000 to $410,000. Again, you get to pick the number, but it needs to be $5,000 to $10,000 more to
so
be
you're
a
saying,
difference.
So you're saying, hey, I will the house is priced at $400. Here's a $400,000 offer, but I'm willing to pay up to $420.
Whatever the
And I'll
number
pay
is.
$5,000 more than the next guy up to $420.
That
And
makes
you get
perfect
to
sense.
you get to you get to cap it. You get to decide how high it's going to go before you say no. I didn't want to pay that much. The other guy can have it.
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
That's pretty much how it works. So I do see a lot of escalations caused with very little difference, $500 or $1,000. And I got to tell you, from the list side, helping a seller, they don't care.
Yeah.
$1,000 is not enough to overcome your other terms.
Because on the
someone
list side,
else.
your job is what?
Is to represent the seller,
And get
make
as
the
much-
seller's life easy, right?
And make
so
as much money
if
for the
you
seller.
didn't make
right.
my life easy as a seller, then I'm probably not going to take you for just $1,000 difference. But
Does it help knowing
$5,000,
that loan is
$5,000,
approved and committed?
you know? Oh yeah, sure, it makes a huge
I
difference.
always use, again, in a perfect world, I always like 10 grand. And here's why. Is
Woo,
when you are pulling money and you're buying a house and you're pulling money out of your bank account to buy it, you are kind of in your head, whether you think you are or not, you're crunching every penny that's coming out. Like, this is exactly how many thousands I need to come out.
Right.
When you're on the sell side, let's just say you've been there a long time and you're making a big difference. Do you really care that you're getting, let's just say you're getting $90,000 off the sale? Do you really care whether it's 90,000 or 91,000?
No, you don't.
Happy camper.
Yeah.
You're getting 90,000.
Right.
And you're like, who for sure is giving me 90,000? Not, I'm going to take a risk to get 91,000. The reason I like $10,000 chunks is no matter what price, whether it's in that scenario 400,000 or 405,000, it always bumps us up into another $10,000 bracket. So in that scenario, instead of the seller getting 90 to 91,000, let's just say it was 90,000. Now they're making 100,000.
Right. This is what they're netting out of the house after all their costs to sell. They're going to go put 90 grand in the bank. But if it's a difference between 90 and 100, it's going to stop them in their tracks, and they're going to go, maybe I will risk that appraisal, or go with the guy that has a small appraisal gap, or has an inspection with, hey, I have reserved the right to walk away, but I won't ask you to fix anything, over the guy who said no inspections. So yeah, it's a game
It's
changer.
the difference between like the $1.99 and $2 scenario. So again, even if somebody was said 85,000, well, if you did a 10 grand bump, but you're now 95,000. So it puts another number, no matter whether it's on the dollar or not, it bumps you another price point where now they can think, well, instead of 90 or 91, it's 90 or 100.
Right.
It starts to make the seller.
It starts to make some big difference.
And separate you. And again, if 10 grand is not what you want to do, again, we've done it.
These
with
are just
5,
options.
and it's
Yes.
just
These are options.
But
I learned so much today. It was
Yeah, we
fascinating.
are out
Thank
of
you.
time.
Yeah.
We're going to have to pick this up next week. We didn't really talk the difference between special and residential. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about is an inspections as is, like maybe a no inspection. Gosh, when would you ever dare to do that? So more to come next week. Thanks for joining us. Hit us a like, hit us a share, subscribe, follow us on our Spotify here. Thank you for joining us in the fundamentals. I hope you didn't have too much mental today. I hope you
No,
had
it
a
was
little
fun for me. I learned a lot.
All right, we'll see you next week.